I just want to start by talking about the notice of funding opportunity happened. So can you tell me a little bit about what that is and what's going on?
Well, so, not too long ago, we passed the CHIPS Act, which is $51 billion to bring semiconductor manufacturing back to the United States. $39 billion of that is sort of incentive money to manufacturers to build these plants here, to create the microchips here, to provide great paying jobs, especially here in the state of Arizona. And the notice of funding opportunities is just that. It says that this money is available, and here's the process to apply to the Department of Commerce for that funding.
And so how is this in bringing semiconductor companies to Arizona? Is it providing more incentive for them to come to the state? Have you heard of more companies coming here?
Well, so Intel is going to build a second manufacturing facility, plant here in the state of Arizona. A company called the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, which makes the best microchips in the world. It's a Taiwanese company. They're already building one of these factories here. Because of the CHIPS Act, they're going to build a second one. And our hope is that they build more beyond that. They're only going to do that because we passed the CHIPS Act. So this was my legislation that provides the incentives. It also does a bunch of other things, to build the whole, the rest of the infrastructure where you can develop the next generation of microchips and the people who are going to build them, too. It's important to have the technicians that are going to do this work. But that legislation is already, bringing these companies here. And it's not just the company that makes the physical chip. And a chip, goes in everything from the cell phone to anything that has an on-off switch. Your car. I was just at Luke Air Force Base this morning. I spent a few hours there talking to them about very specific issues with regards to the F-35, our premier fighter jet. A lot of our allies buy this airplane. Well, you can't build this airplane without the best microchips in the world. And right now, the best chips are made across the Pacific Ocean. That's not acceptable. And this legislation is going to fix that.
With this notice of funding opportunity, the applications are opening. They're able to get these funding incentives. What is that process looking like for them applying? What are the deadlines? When can they physically get the access to this money and start building?
Yeah, they'll be able to get the access to the funds here, and it's a substantial amount of money. I mean, there's $39 billion. So somebody who wants to build a factory here can get up to, in excess of $1 billion. And these plants are really expensive. It's not just the physical building itself. It's the lithography machines and all the other equipment that goes in there to make what I would argue is one of the most sophisticated pieces of hardware that we have ever made, which is a semiconductor chip, microelectronics that were originally invented here in the United States. So that funding is going to be available, and in the checking accounts of some of these companies that are already started construction here, I would say, by the end of the year.
And you mentioned, Intel's going to build another campus here. TSMC has already announced they're going to invest more money here, build more campuses here. Are you hearing of any other companies that are wanting to come to Arizona due to the CHIPS Act?
There's 100 companies, and they're mostly the suppliers to Intel and TSMC, but we do have other semiconductor manufacturing companies looking at Arizona, to relocate here. Companies that make memory, memory chips. There's a difference between, the chip for memory compared to the, chip that is the main processor in a computer or in something like a cell phone. So the opportunity to grow our GDP here, to grow our economy, has benefited enormously already from this legislation. And over the next 5 to 10 years, we will be a hub for semiconductor manufacturing here in the United States, in the Western Hemisphere, and we're not going to have to go all the way across an ocean to get something that we really need. This is really important to our national security to have these chips here.
Like Sunlit, are with Taiwan Semiconductor, right? And they came here and they're building a facility now.
A lot of companies are going to be building facilities here, and most of them will be here in Maricopa County.
Perfect. And so this is, you accomplished a lot with the CHIPS Act, and this is going to bring economic growth to Arizona. This is your first full term as a U.S. Senator. What do you have on the horizon for the next few years? What do you want to accomplish?
Well, so I'm on the Armed Services Committee. I'm the chairman of the Airland Subcommittee on Armed Services. What that means is my subcommittee that I'm the chair of is in charge of all Air Force programs and operations and procurement. Same thing for the Army. And we've got a big military presence here in the state. We're a big military state. Most of that is Air Force and Army. I spent 25 years in the Navy, but that's okay. And I'm really focused on making sure that our warfighters, our soldiers and airmen, here have what they need to be able to support our national defense. That also benefits the state of Arizona. I'm also on the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. I just had at ASU today a roundtable on Western water in the Colorado River. This is a problem. I worked to get about $4 billion into the Inflation Reduction Act. To address the immediate needs of this crisis on the Colorado River. We can't let the river crash. What I mean by that is we can't let Lake Mead get down to a level where water is not going to come out of the dam anymore, the Hoover Dam. Because if that happens, we don't get water in California and in Arizona and Mexico. It's not going to happen. I just met with Commissioner Tootin, Governor Lewis, Tom Bushatsky, who's the head of Water Resources, Sarah Porter from ASU, and others to discuss kind of where we are and what do we need to do moving forward. We now have the tools in place because of that $4 billion and another $8 billion that I worked on to get in the bipartisan infrastructure bill to do the water resiliency projects we need, like drip irrigation and building more water storage, settling tribal water claims. If we do all these things and we're starting to line them up, we're going to be able to conserve and leave enough water up in Lake Mead that we're not going to have to worry about, the flow of water to the lower basin states.
And, you say that's not going to happen. We're not going to use all that water.
We're not going to let it happen.
So is there anything that you're planning to do within the Senate and within Congress I know what's been done.
Yeah.
Is there anything
moving forward?
planning to do?
So we got the Farm Bill coming up. Farm Bill's done every 5 years. I've had conversations with my colleagues already that the Farm Bill cannot just be about farming in the Midwest, that it needs to be about agriculture in the Southwest as well. We do a lot of agriculture here. Yuma. Yuma, if you eat lettuce anywhere in North America, in the winter, in the spring, even in the fall, you probably got that lettuce, any green leafy vegetable, 90% of it comes from Yuma County. So this is important for our food supply. So we're going to look at opportunities in the Farm Bill to make sure we secure our water future here in the West.
And also talking about, legislation that you may be working on. You and U.S. Senator Kyrsten Sinema led a group of U.S. senators to the border earlier this year. Yeah. You guys held a roundtable on it. Towards the end of the year, we saw immigration reform introduced. Sinema said that she's working on that framework right now. Are you involved in those conversations?
Yes, and we're continuing to work on it. We've got a crisis at our southern border. It continues to be a crisis. The numbers have gotten better, I'd say, over the last couple months. Hard to say if that's going to continue in that direction. The administration did take some steps I would say are somewhat positive. There's a lot more we need to do. And when Title 42 ends, this is likely to be a bigger problem. And I got to say, this is not fair to border communities, places like, Yuma, Douglas, Nogales. It's also not fair to the Border Patrol. They're given an impossible job. This is a really, really tough job. We've got illegal drugs coming across the border. So we're going to continue to focus on this. At the same time, comprehensive immigration reform is incredibly important to me because it's important to our economy, not just here in the state, but in the country. We need to have a workforce. I had yesterday had dairy farmers in my office, and I knew exactly what they were going to want to talk about, and that is workforce. They need immigrants to fill the jobs, to make sure, and dairy is a huge percentage of agriculture here in the state of Arizona. And I think we owe it to farmers and ranchers here in Arizona and other employers to have an immigration system that works for them.
And so are there any details that you can provide me in that framework of specifically how you're going to accomplish this and support them?
There's things called H-1A visas, or H-2A. H-2A visas, that's the farm worker visa. We need more of those, and it shouldn't be so costly to the employer. I mean, the farmer that is hiring a migrant because he can't find somebody else to do the job shouldn't be as costly. In the car driving over here, I was, reviewing, some, details of, some proposals that we have on what the cost is to farmers in Arizona, for these programs like H-2A, and we need to expand it. But it can't also be in a way that makes it unaffordable for a farmer or rancher.
Perfect. And so we are coming up on a 2024 presidential election here. During your re-election campaign, Senator Sinema actually told me that she fully expects Senator Kelly to be re-elected by the people of Arizona. She did switch to the Independent Party. I know she hasn't announced if she's going to run again or not, but you guys have worked hand in hand on so much legislation and accomplished a lot. Will you support her if she does decide to make that run, because she is an independent and you are with the Democratic Party?
Parties, that stuff doesn't matter to me. Senator Sinema and I have worked very closely, and she is a very effective United States Senator, and we've worked very closely on so many different things. But I am not going to get ahead of her on any announcement.
Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Great seeing you again.